Most of us have been sold this concept of working harder, of living in that hustle culture. And we don't realize that the key to success is truly just the opposite. Well, we're going to break down that myth today when we get into busting the myth of business. So stay tuned. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Clarity in Action. Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Well, welcome to the show. Today we have an amazing guest, and we are going to dive into the difference between being busy and being productive and how we want to get out of that realm of busyness. So, Peggy Sullivan, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
So you have really tackled this whole area. You have a book that just came out, and you really dive deep into this concept of how so many of us live by being too busy, and that really isn't helping us to move forward in our life. Before we dive into some of that, I would just love to ask, what was your moment of clarity when you realized you couldn't live by being busy?
Yeah, busyness definitely doesn't equate to success. We think it does, but my moment of clarity came when I came home from a long day at work. I was hungry. I reached into the cupboards. I grabbed the only thing I could find, a handful of pistachio nuts. I felt a tugging on my leg. It was my cat, Dazzle, saying, "Mommy, feed me too." So I grabbed some food and put it in his dish and fell asleep on the couch. And I woke up to my cat throwing up pistachio nuts. And I looked down and I realized I had eaten cat food for dinner and I didn't even realize it. And I remember thinking to myself, the nuts were salty, they were stale. I should go to the store and get some new ones. But I was on autopilot. And that's when it just really hit me of how much time am I spending on autopilot, not being intentional and not being purposeful.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That is a fantastic story, a little terrifying at the same time. And I think many of us can relate to it, whether we do that thing called zombie driving, where we drive somewhere and we're like, how did we get here? Or, just going through life, like you talked about, not being intentional. Talk to me more about, first of all, I think a lot of us pride ourselves on being busy. We wear it like a badge of honor. Why do you think we strive and we have created this belief system that being busy is good for us?
It has a lot to do with our hustle society. We tend to believe that more is better, and when we have more, that equates and turns into bottom line success. But quite honestly, all of the statistics show the exact opposite. The busier we are, the less we accomplish, and the more burnt out we get, and our mental health deteriorates, our physical health, our mood, our charisma, all of that. And so I think for so long, we all lived in a 24/7 hustle society
Mhm.
where busyness was good. And hopefully, people have hit the pause button and are starting to wake up and to realize that intentionality is the key to success. Being very purposeful with what you do, how you do it, when you do it is the way to achieve more by doing less.
Yeah. And I know because that's something that I share with people too. And I think when you first hear it, it can be a little terrifying. I know the first time that someone told me, you have to pull back, you have to do less. I went to this immediate fear of, but then my clients are going to be mad at me. I'm going to lose business. So, talk a little bit about that myth of by doing less, it's actually, we're going to lose business when in reality, I found I actually got more business.
I think when we're always on this treadmill, this hamster wheel, we're not strategic in the things we do, and we end up getting caught in what I call low value transactions, busy traps. And while we don't intentionally spend a lot of time in them, it just happens. Maybe you're caught up in email and you're only going to look at it for 15 minutes. And next thing you know, it's an hour. Or maybe you said yes to a meeting because you thought you needed to be there and you needed to be present. But in reality, you weren't adding value or you weren't getting value. And so, one of the most important things that I tell people to do is to look at their low value transactions and immediately start to subtract them from their day to day life. Because when you do, you will start to feel some relief and have time to be more strategic. And we all know that when you go somewhere with a roadmap and intention, that your opportunity for success is so much greater.
Yeah. So I would love to hear, what are some examples as you went through this for yourself? What were some examples of those low value transactional items that you let go of?
Oh, there are lots of them. I think I used to get caught in that email busy trap,
Mhm.
the email rabbit hole. I used to feel as though the whole world was on fire when I went to bed. So as soon as I got up in the morning, I need to check email and I need to clean out my box. But the reality is it would take a couple of hours. There may be over 100 emails, and I wasn't getting to the strategic, the intentional, the important things in my day. So I took a step back and I said, well, what if I only looked at email twice a day? And what if I was very intentional? 11 and 3, those were my times. And I told everybody, hey, if you need me and it's really important, pick up the phone or please know I'll get back to you at 11 o'clock. Well, that was a game changer for me. And it's really all about making room for what's important. And it feels really good. It's like a shot of endorphins when
Mhm.
you're intentional and when you're strategic.
Yeah. And you hit on something really powerful that was a lesson I learned as well. And it's the setting the expectations. Like you said, you tell them, you know, leave me a message. I will return your call. I used to always ask people, if you leave me a voice message, give me 3 hours to get back with you. That was a reasonable amount of time. And it set the expectation so that they knew and we could get that agreement from the start. But if we don't communicate, people treat us the way that we teach them to treat us. And if we are living by all those fires that are out there, it's going to be expected that we address things that way, where this puts us back in control.
Boundary setting is a difficult thing to do on so many levels. Boundary setting with our friends, with our family, with appointments, with colleagues, with clients, with employees. But yet, when you know the rules of engagement, you can play wholeheartedly and put 100% of yourself into it. And I firmly believe that when we set boundaries and we take time for self care and we take time for thought and research and all the things that line us up for success, we end up doing a much better job and we hit the nail right on the head. And I think once you get into that, wow, this really works, and this is a process that works 95% of the time. Why wouldn't you start to use a process that made you more productive, that
Mhm.
made you healthier, that made you happier, that gave you time for your relationships? It's
Yeah.
kind of a no-brainer.
It is once you get to the other side. As you were saying, boundaries can be really hard for people. So can you think of either from your own life or maybe even a client that you worked with and give us some examples of how you helped to set boundaries? What were the areas? What were some of the phrases that you used to be able to do them successfully? And also the reinforcement, because even though we say it and we quote unquote said it, enforcing them is a whole other area.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think I love my work and I'm very passionate about it. And I sometimes get caught up in doing something that I'm feeling really great about. And my poor husband has no quality time with me. And so what I try to do, no matter what, is I set a personal alarm clock that when 7 hits, 7 p.m. hits, no matter where in the world Peggy Sullivan is, I'm going to reach out to my husband. And if I'm traveling, I'm going to connect with him and have meaningful conversation. Or if I'm at home, we're going to connect eyeball to eyeball and we're going to have a talk. And I'm very big on setting up transactions, scheduled transactions, really pre-scheduling things out so that they happen. We tend to overbook ourselves all the time, but when was the last time you pre-scheduled your workouts,
Yeah.
your conversations with a loved one, or even a happiness ritual? People know that they cannot reach me at 11 a.m. to 11:05 because I'm doing my happiness ritual. It recharges me. It's the reset button, and I just need to be doing it because I know when I'm done, I'll have clarity. I
Mhm.
will have purpose and I will know what to do next. I won't be floundering or just doing.
Yeah. And one of the things that you just hit on, and I really hope that people heard this, it's getting clear on what's a priority and then scheduling that. I think we're really good at scheduling appointments with clients, and we don't miss those appointments, but we don't schedule all the other things like appointments as well. Like you said, time with your husband, with your loved ones, time for yourself. Those are things that actually need to go into your calendar first and need to be really the cornerstones that we protect so much.
So true, Clara. And I think the other thing that is really good to set time for the unexpected. Things
Mhm.
go wrong. Our world is pivoting. If you can just put aside a half an hour every day for the things that are likely going to go wrong or the things that are going to take longer than we normally think they will, then you will have enough time for what's important. So I am a protector of my calendar. I really make sure that I get my happiness rituals in there, that I'm aligned with my values. I get my workouts in there. I get my time to think strategically, and it's all pre-planned out. So
Mhm.
I don't have to worry about making time for it. It just sits in the calendar.
Exactly. So you've mentioned this happiness ritual. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I wrote my first book, Happiness is Your Responsibility, and I really studied the neuroscience of happiness. And it was pretty fascinating to me what happens when we're happy. Your brain lights up and it sends endorphins to your body and to your brain, basically saying, I'm more focused. I'm healthier. I'm happier. I have more positive energy. I'm in a really uplifting mood. I'm the type of person that walks into a room and people want to be with me. Happiness is a superpower. And for a long time, we looked at happiness as this nice thing to have. But really, happiness makes us work more efficiently, more effectively. It fights off chronic disease. When we're happy, we sleep better. When we're happy, we have better relationships. So happiness is it's superpower, and it's not just a nice to have, it's an empowering tool that makes you more efficient and more effective. So happiness rituals are little bite-sized things that I do throughout my day that I have 100% control over. It may be first thing in the morning, just sitting down, pulling my cat, I'm a cat lover, on my lap and just kind of cuddling with him. I also love dark chocolate. So usually at around 10:30 in the morning, I'll close my eyes, I'll grab my 3 pieces of dark chocolate, I'll pop them into my mouth and I'll just savor the moment. And it's like pushing a reset button. And there are so many things that we can do that take no resources whatsoever to light us up and to get those endorphins going. So I always tell people schedule them, and they're great in the workplace. I worked at United Healthcare and managed a customer service department for a very long time, and customer service is a hard job, especially in
Mhm.
healthcare. And we used to do these happiness rituals. Maybe they were dance parties, maybe they were coffee milk, maybe we all got on a Zoom and told jokes. made funny faces, whatever. It was just 3 or 4 minutes of sheer, utter delight, laughter, joy, and you just forget everything that's cluttered in your head. It's just definitely like pushing that reset button.
Mhm.
So I really encourage people to put happiness rituals into their day-to-day activities. And it's step 2 in my busy busting process.
Yeah. And I think that, you hit on something, which is the idea that there are things that are in your control and they don't have to be big things. Cause I could imagine some people are like, well, I'm just having a bad day, or that sounds silly. But it's almost like those moments of gratitude. And like you said, it rewires your brain. And when you're in a state of happiness, your brain cannot hold the two conflicting thoughts. So you're starting to, like you said, hit the reset. So I want to go into one thing that you just brought up, and that is your busyness process. And you said that the happiness rituals are step 2. Why don't you tell us about the different steps and your process for this?
Absolutely. I spent 8 to 10, well, first of all, my name is Peggy, and I am a busyness addict. And I spent so much of my life chasing the bar and raising the bar that I just didn't really see myself and see how much time I was wasting and how much energy and resource and love and family and just so many things that were falling to the wayside. And
Mhm.
even with lots of wake up calls, so about 10 years ago, when I finally faced my truth, I ate cat food for dinner and I wasn't going to be doing that again. I said to myself, let me test a process. Let me develop a process that will help eliminate busyness and get people to more intention. Step 1 in that process is what I call subtraction. And it's about really face to face with your low value activities and knowing how you spend your time and making sure that you're not spending your time doom scrolling. I spoke to somebody yesterday. I coached a team, and she was telling me how watching news these days was toxic for her. She cut out watching the news, and she said she could not believe how much more time she had in her day and how her mood just stayed in a really wonderful place. So
Mhm.
step 1, subtraction, eliminating low value activities. Step 2 is happiness rituals. We think happiness is a destination, it's a thing. I'm going to be happy when I get married, when I have a baby, when I get the promotion. But happiness is in these little micro moments we create
Mhm.
for ourselves that don't take a lot of resource. Just walking out the front door and feeling the cold air on your face, that can get a set of endorphins going. And then step 3, which is one that is very, very important to me, is having a process to align what's valuable to you personally with how you spend your time. And I call it values vibing. And I did some research about what are the values that people have. So when they get to the end of their day and they've lived these values, they feel like they've lived a well lived life. And it turns out that there are 4 of them that really help people live their best life. And human connection is one of them, energy management is another, growth, learning something new. My dad always used to say, Toots, a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And
Mhm.
then authenticity, and we tend to think that authenticity is, believing in ourselves and having the bravery to step into our own truths. But today I believe authenticity is about accepting everybody else around you and all the
Mhm.
differences and knowing that we're better together.
Yeah, those are fantastic. And I think those 4 concepts really are profound. The idea of human connection. I have been known to say that, outside of food, clothing, and shelter, human connection is the next basic human need. And I think coming out of, the pandemic, a lot of us were really damaged by that loss of connection. One of the things I am most grateful for when it comes to technology is the ability to bring in that connection. And I like to say that technology should be used to enhance connection, but not replace it. But if we didn't have it, you and I wouldn't be able to be connected. Look at all these things. But I do think you have to get yourself connected. Even if you are extremely introverted, That doesn't mean you don't have anyone to talk to. You're just more selective and you do it on a smaller scale. But being able to get connected is huge. And I love that idea of authenticity. And I think that that can be so hard for people, especially because we live in a state of comparisonitis where we are being bombarded with, look at what this person's doing, look at what that person's doing. And we forget that all we're seeing is what they want to show us. All we're seeing is oftentimes their highlight reel. And that doesn't necessarily mean that really is who they are.
I
So,
call it compare and despair because you're
mhm,
right. As human beings, we compare each other, but I like to flip that on its head and say, well, why can't I just be happy for that person?
mhm,
Or why can't I learn from the example that they're showing? Or why can't I enjoy this moment together? So I'm a perpetual optimist and it's really served me well in life, but I always try to figure out how can we make this moment
mhm.
valuable? How can we make this moment really worthwhile for everybody involved? And I think that when we all do that, that's when we live our best lives. Get
Absolutely.
value, give value.
Absolutely. So I know a lot of people that are following this show are entrepreneurs. And I can hear a lot of them saying to themselves, I'm just getting started out, or I'm not in a place where I can hire an assistant. And I love the idea, but I have to do it all. And I hear what they are saying, and I've been in where they are. And I also know that that's not going to serve them in the long run, as I'm sure you do. But if that person is being there and being like, I don't even know who I would go to, I don't even know what I would get off of my plate, where's a good starting point for it?
Sure, I would send them to my website and going to a tool I call the Busy Barometer. And I worked with HR and human psychiatrists and physiognomics to better understand the lowest value actions that we spend a lot of time on. It turns out that there are 21 of them.
Mm,
So, this busy barometer is a 3 to 4 minute quiz. It's free of cost, and it just helps you identify and see in writing, what are the lowest value activities. And it's pretty crazy how we hurt ourselves. For example, 89% of the population overschedules their day, so they don't have
mm,
time to do their work.
yeah,
So we feel networking and sales and meetings is a productive way, but then you get to your end of your day and your work's not done and you have work to do, and then you have to work through the night to get it done. It's like this cycle that just doesn't work out
mhm,
well. And so knowing our low value activities and really being firm about them, and they may change depending on the space you're in. I take the busy barometer probably once a month and then work on one low value activity. And you're right, it's not easy, especially when you're an entrepreneur. I
yeah.
remember waking up every morning and looking at my computer that had a big yellow post it note on it saying, Peggy, no email before 11 a.m. And I would look at that and I would say, I made a promise to myself and I'm going to keep this
Mhm.
and, be very intentional. And the thing of it is when you do eliminate low value activities, you bring back time for the things that are more important and the things that are more intentional. And so you're more productive, you're healthier, you're happier. And here's another statistic: 89% of the population multitasks.
Mhm.
But when we multitask, it actually takes us 3 times longer, and our work has 2.5 as many times mistakes.
Mhm.
So we think we're doing ourselves a favor by multitasking, getting multiple things done, but our work is actually taking longer and it's filled with mistakes.
I
So,
know.
it's just as simple as cutting out those low value activities.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Peggy, we have covered so much ground and just what a wealth of knowledge and nuggets. And I love your busy barometer. So we're going to have the links for all of those things in the show notes. And I encourage everyone to do that. With everything you have going on, I know that, you are just on this upward trajectory of delivering even more value. So talk to us a little bit about what's next for Peggy.
Right Now I'm doing a lot of speaking, which I love. I have found so much success in the busy busting process. My joy, my passion is going out there and sharing it with the world because I really believe that when we all get more intentional and when we're focused on getting value and giving value, the world will be a much better place. So for me, helping other people step into their personal power and doing workshops and speaking and getting on stages, that's where my focus is. There'll probably be a new book in another year or two, but right now I just want to teach others because this strategy, this framework, it's really changed my life. And I've seen how it's changed people around me, thousands of people, big companies, small companies. So if you just give it a twirl,
Yeah.
just take a moment and say subtraction, happiness rituals, values vibing. It's just as easy as one, two, three. It's
Yeah.
not rocket
I
science.
know. Love it. Well, Peggy, I have one more question for you before we say goodbye. Want to thank you so much. This has been great. It is very simple. Doesn't always mean it's easy, but again, just start and just work at it. But the last question I have for you is sitting where you sit today, learning everything that you've learned up to this point on your journey through life. How do you define success for yourself now?
Just taking a micro step forward, being grateful, helping other people. To me, that's what success, passing it on.
Mhm.
To me, that's what success looks like. Making the world a better place. I started a nonprofit 10 years ago because I was really passionate about making the world a better place. And it's still the thing that gives me the most joy is helping people find their power, their satisfaction, the sweet spot where they're productive and they're hitting their goals and getting things done. But it's honestly micro step at a time, one baby micro step, and then the micro steps start to add up.
Yep. So true. Well, Peggy, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, and good luck to you on all your future endeavors. I know they'll be successful.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Well, I just have to say that that was one of my most favorite interviews because I felt like I was talking to myself. Peggy and I are just so on the same wavelength. And the things that she said, I really hope you took notes. And I really hope that you go back, re listen to this, share it with others, because too many of us are living in the cult of busy. And it is really detrimental to us moving forward with our business and our life. I loved her 3 step process. The first one, the subtracting. Again, get rid of the things that are not the high ticket impact items in your business. If you can't delegate them, can you systematize them? Think about how we do our bill paying. Most of us systematize it. We have auto pay. Can you do those in other areas? So subtract those low hanging items so you can spend more time in the high impact. Love her idea of the happiness rituals. I call them moments of joy. 5 minutes, 15 minutes a day. Get yourself into the state of happiness. It is scientifically proven that when you get those endorphins going and that you come from a place of happiness, we actually perform better, like 37% better. So it's a pretty significant amount. And then the idea of get in alignment with your values. If things are not feeding your values, stop doing them. If opportunities are not going to be in alignment with your values, you do not need to work with everyone. So keep it simple. Another thing I love is to talk about the rules of engagement. Know your rules, know your standards, and make sure you are communicating those. It is perfectly acceptable to sit down with a client before you work with them and say, this is how I operate. If it doesn't work, that's okay. But you've got to let people know so that we can all play well in the sandbox together. She talked about this idea of being intentional several times. Oh, I love the setting the time for the unexpected. I was just talking about this and I call it making room for plan B. Leave some buffer time in your day. Life is unexpected. And if you have that time set aside, it's going to eliminate stress because you know when you can manage things. So go and look for Peggy. She's giving us that boundary and busy buster that you can use as a free gift. So go to check it out, check yourself. Being busy is different than being productive because when you're productive, you are intentional, you are clear, you are confident, and you're going to get more of the right things done. That's how you're going to get to the real levels of success. So, thank you. Please share this with others. Too many of us are just living on that hamster wheel, and we do not need to. So, I'm Clara Capano. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Clarity in Action.